We are now connecting to YouTube right now.
Okay. So I got a message that says we're good on YouTube.
Yeah.
Okay. So we get started. Happy New Year to board members and staff and anybody watching either on Zoom or YouTube. This is the Planning Board January 7th, 2021 meeting. We have a brief agenda and we'll get started with the trustee report, which Rebecca Cassay will give us now.
Good. Thank you so much. Happy New Year, everyone. And all the trustee report includes is a note from trustees and folks at the village saying that they are excited with the board, the work of the board here in working on those Uptown PILOP code proposal change, proposals for code changes, and as well as the proposals for looking at redefining our parking space and module requirements. And as we look at agenda items like the ones today, the board is very ready to look at those proposals sort of as soon as they're ready. And Village Attorney Brian Egan said that he would be more than happy to help facilitate those if he can be of any help. And that is the entirety of the trustee report.
Okay, our former trustee who gave the report would then say that concludes the trustee. Sometimes he would say that if he had no report, which was a little confusing, but thank you. Brief, but it's appropriate because we are going to be talking about the only item on the agenda tonight is 1 North Country Road, which is a site plan development. We'll actually ask the applicants, participants to log in now, or Lisa will actually put them on the screen.
Sure. 1 second, let me just. Let me see. Okay, I'm promoting Eric Nicosia to panelist and Rob Gito. Let's see. Hi, Rob.
Hi, how are you?
Rob.
Hi, Rob. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everyone.
To you too.
Now, is Eric, do you see Eric or no?
I see him. I'm trying to get him to join as a panelist. It says, but
And if you could possibly add my father as well, that'd be great.
sure, I see him here.
Thank you.
No problem. For some reason, I'm having trouble getting Eric up to a panelist. I don't know why it's not doing it.
We'll give it a minute. While we're waiting for Eric, I just want to say that this is the name of the application is 1 North Country Road. It's the location of the former Lobster House, which for any viewers who are tuning in might not know, the Lobster House has closed and it has now relocated downtown Port Jefferson. The description of the application is proposed construction of a three-story mixed use building with 40 apartments. So what we're going to do tonight is just introduce the application. The application is being introduced to the board so that we can grasp or get our fingers around it to just get an introduction and make some initial comments on some of the materials that have been submitted by the applicant. I see.
Message to Eric.
Yeah, I'm just writing to Eric to see if he can see. I just promoted Mark. I'm sorry, that was the wrong one.
You can add Mark as well. That's fine.
But yeah, I don't mean to exclude anyone. So
no, that's fine.
You're not putting your entire family on here, are you?
Well, I have one more brother who's involved, so we're family business, you know. So.
It's like, so I don't see Eric anymore in the waiting room either.
You know, I'll try Eric just to make sure.
See if he's having an issue. If I need to
Find a key because he has the whole presentation. So
Yes, I know. If I need to send him a direct invite, I could try that too. So if you get a response, let me know.
all right, I'll step away and I'll call him real quick.
Okay.
Okay. The board members, we got a packet of information. I don't know if you had a time to look at it, but we'll be talking about that tonight. And I guess, Jen, you can share the screen and put some of those drawings up on the screen while we're discussing.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think Lisa has all the documents.
Oh, Lisa.
Would you like me to pull anything up right now as we wait for?
I think we can
I'd
wait.
wait till we have everybody in.
Okay.
Mhm. While we're waiting, I just want to make note that the next scheduled meeting of the planning board is February 11th. That's a Thursday night. So a notice will be posted on the website regarding the time of that meeting.
What time?
I don't know if we have anything scheduled or on target for a public hearing that night. Normally, we begin our work session in advance of the public hearing at 5 or 5:30 p.m. And the public hearing is either at 6 or 6:30, depending on, it kind of depends on the amount of items on the agenda as well. So sounds like there are a lot of things from what we were talking about earlier, a lot of applications that are pending, but not quite ready for prime time.
We have a couple of things in the hopper. The time doesn't have to be set right now. That's something that we can circulate via email as long as it's the times noted in the notice and we meet the notice requirements. The timing on that doesn't really matter.
So we'll probably know right now we don't have anything for public hearing yet, but I guess there's a little time still, so we can make that call.
Oh,
Eric, there you are.
Hi, Eric.
Hey, Eric.
Hi, Eric.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Are we waiting for video on the other people, Rob?
Don't worry about it. You could. Eric's got to do the presentation. We'll let them chime in later. That's fine.
Okay.
We're the only good-looking one.
Yeah.
That's
We'll give you a little break, Eric. You don't need to go right away. Are you actually frozen now, though, on your screen? You may be frozen.
Yeah, it doesn't look like we've got a great connection here.
He looks a little frozen.
I'm kind of enjoying Frozen, Eric.
I know. Fortunately for him, it's not
We
you know,
just
terrible
did one of these
expressions.
recently.
It could be a lot worse.
We did one recently. He didn't have any issue. I don't know what happened.
Yeah. That's always the case. There's always something.
Let's see.
Oh.
Try again.
I'm gonna try again. Okay.
I apologize.
So, I do have the documents to share, so if he needs to call in and speak, I can share my computer.
Okay. Yeah, I'll call him and tell him that.
Okay. We'll wait a minute or so, and then Jen, maybe you can just give an overview of the project, just some highlights maybe. Then we'll ask Rob to go through a general presentation of what's involved, and then maybe Jen, you can talk about the staff report comments from the staff report that was also distributed the other day.
All right. Do you want me? Are we going to wait a couple more
I think
minutes, or do you want me to
let's give
start?
him a minute, see if Rob comes
Okay,
back on, and
good.
maybe
Yeah.
Eric can pop in.
Yeah, I'm just on the phone with Eric. I'm trying to get him back on. So
Okay.
1 minute. Sorry. If he was to call in, he just.
Let me, I can send him an email with the call-in number, I think.
Perfect.
So
All
just
right,
give me a
I'll let him
second.
know that. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, sorry. So Eric's going to call you. Lisa, you're able to send him a link?
Yeah, so, oh, it's, yeah, he should now have an invite. Which will have the call-in numbers.
Great, thank you.
No problem.
Just invite me to call.
All right, maybe Jen, you want to get started with just the, maybe just an overview of the project? And then when Eric gets on, he can talk a little bit more about it, maybe some more details. And then Jen, you can get into the staff report that was distributed on Tuesday to the planning board staff.
Sure. As Ray said, it's a mixed-use project. It's proposed on 3 lots. So the two, it's on the corner of, as he pointed out, Main Street and North Country Road. The 3 lots are currently improved with a now empty Lobster House, its parking lot, and the easternmost lot has a small retail establishment. It was a florist called Roots. And in assessing the site, it is in the C2, but only partially in the sewer district. So you may, I don't know if anyone wondered, but the structure itself is concentrated on the westernmost site lot that fronts Main Street. That lot is in the sewer district, and the other 2 are not. And I think that was a driving rationale for siting the building in its entirety on lot 1, the westernmost lot.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Lisa, do you mind sending me the call in as well? I'm going to text it to Eric because he's just having a Wi-Fi issue.
Oh, okay, sure. Hold on.
Thank you. Sorry, go ahead.
That's okay.
Yeah, Jen,
well,
I'm wondering if it's after Lisa, after Lisa goes down her list and has some time.
oh, actually, we need the drawings up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll pull it one just once.
I'm thinking the first drawing of the larger file, that's the one that had the aerial site view. That might be a good one, because for anybody watching on Zoom or YouTube, it's hard to sometimes look at just a line item drawing, but an aerial photo is going to, I think, will be a lot more helpful. That's the larger file that was in that email that you sent, Lisa.
Okay, so let
Yeah,
me
I
just,
think that's the first file.
What is it?
So
10 or
All right.
13 megabytes.
so let me see if I can figure out which one you would like me to share. Hold on one second, I will pull it up.
site.
How's that?
That's very good.
Perfect. Right. So you can see parcel 1, 2, and 3. Parcel 1 is in the sewer district. 2 and 3 are not. And the Eric Nicosia had indicated that for a number of reasons, it was important. They obviously want the project to be part of the sewer district, and that's why it's located on parcel 1. It proposes, let's see, 40 unit. The parcels combined is just under, it's under an acre. 40 apartment units, 35 one-bedroom apartments, 5 two-bedroom apartments, and at the corner of Main Street and North Country Road, 1,350 square feet of retail / office space. There's quite an elevation change, as everyone probably knows, as you head north. There's quite a steep hill. Main Street is quite steep at that point. So the building sort of follows the slope down and actually sort of steps down a bit in section. In terms of zoning compliance, the application has provided almost all of the required parking on the site. I think they're short one space, and I think that was just a calculating error. However, and let's see what else. I'm not sure. Perhaps Lisa. Oh, it won't be on this.
Eric is available.
Oh, good.
He is available via audio. Lisa, I don't know if you could punch him in, but.
Okay, let me hold
Good.
on.
He can probably give a better overview than I can.
Yeah, the other set of plans has the proposed. This one's good because it's got the aerial, which is helpful. We may want to switch over to the other set, which has the drawings of each level of the project.
Okay.
Yes, hello, Eric's here, finally.
Hi, Aaron.
Hi, Eric.
I apologize for that.
It's okay. We've pulled up the overview of the site, and Jen was just giving a brief overview.
But I'm sure you can do much better than I was doing.
Yes, okay, so I guess thank you for starting that. I apologize for the snafu here. If I start back also, I'm sorry, Jennifer, were you finished with your thoughts or?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So, and I guess starting back on Thorn Lane, where we're proposing the curb cut entrance there, we're following the existing grade, so obviously the grade of the street would be the same. We'd be providing curbs and sidewalks, which we could discuss further what the needs are. In that location, there's quite a bit of room. It's a pretty narrow road at the moment, and so there is some room to the property line. And then as we come around the corner and down North Country Road, we're keeping the same grade. So the parking lot is essentially going to be at the same grade as what is there now. We just have a bit of a 7% slope as we come in off of Thorn Lane, and then it's about a 4% slope that brings us towards the building. So where on the first floor plan and site plan I'm showing the outdoor handicap spaces, that's approximately where the curb cut is right now, which we would be proposing to close up. So the parking lot is somewhat self-explanatory, and we have a recreation area in the back. We're providing the landscape buffer zone also along 3rd Thorn Lane. And then as we come along North Country Road, the building starts at the corner where we have our commercial space. And heading up towards Thorn Lane, it goes on the first tax map that we have, and that's where the building is proposed to stop. And a couple of reasons for that. One, we're trying to make a compact design and not stretch all the way essentially on North Country Road, but also that's where the end of the sewer district is. So because they're separate tax lots, in order for us to build on the other tax lots heading towards Mather, we would need to request to be let in, to let those lots into the sewer agency and pay for the privilege for the units that would go over there. So we're showing this as what we consider a good compact design. And then we have if you're looking at the building along North Country Road, we have the first level that has the commercial. We have a lobby and an entrance area that's accessible from North Country. And then we have a little bit of the building that has a parking that has the parking is covered. It's open on all sides. It's open on 2 sides, and it provides some coverage for the parking. And then above that, we have 3 floors. So along North Country Road, which you would see are the 4 levels, with the upper floor being the bonus story, which is set back as required to 12 feet. So the building itself is set back from North Country and Main Street 12 feet, and then the upper bonus story in conformance with the zoning would step back an additional 12 feet. And up on that level, in that place, are roof balconies that the upper tenants in that area would use for their own use. And that setback wraps around the corner on Main Street, so that 12-foot setback does continue. So
Eric, just want to interrupt for a second. We had I guess that was the larger file that had the aerial as the first sheet. We had that on. Maybe it's time, Lisa, to put up the other file.
I just told her, yeah.
Okay. Which has the floor plan of each floor, and it also has a view of I guess it's got elevation views on it too, of each floor. It kind of.
Right. The last page would be the sections that kind of show the important part about how the heights are happening. So I think it's pretty straightforward along North Country Road. And so as we turn the corner, the property itself from one end to the other, from the top of Thorn Lane to the bottom of Main Street, is about a 20-foot drop. So a lot of that happens when you turn the corner at Main Street. Right. So in fact, the slope of the street on North Country Road is very reasonable. I have showing the handicap spaces outside there, and it actually meets the requirements. The sidewalk that's on North Country meets the requirements for an accessible route, and so it's not an extreme slope there. But once you get around the corner, and I know everybody's aware, it's a pretty large drop. It's about 14 feet from the corner down to the bottom.
Okay.
So I feel, I guess it's pretty clear that along North Country Road, about the 4th floor is a bonus, and as we turn the corner, and utilizing also because of the height zoning description in the village, the legal, quote unquote, legal height description is referenced off of the midpoint of Thorn Lane, because it takes the higher elevation of the road frontage. So when we get around the corner and head down Main Street, I have at the bottom of the hill, let's call it, I have a basement. At this point, if we ignore the use issue for a minute, what I've done is above that, I've on the fourth floor, which for tonight's purposes, I'm calling the fourth floor. The building is further set back, so I'm looking to meet that story definition, because the village has a definition of the story related to how far out of the ground the ceiling is, and the number is 4 feet, the structural ceiling in relation to the grade. So the only place that you can even think about getting to number 5 is when after we turn the corner on Main Street and you're heading down the hill. On the Thorn Lane side of the property, the building is obviously set way back from Thorn Lane, but that only has a 4-story count to it. So,
Eric, if I can just interrupt you for a second, we've got drawing 5 of 5, I believe it is, which show the elevation views. And we've got section AA, BB, and CC. And maybe you can just talk to those if you have a copy.
Sure. And if you're looking at the section CC, or I'm sorry, the section at the bottom of the page, it's just labeled section C. Yes.
So that's a cross section of the building along Main Street. Is that correct?
Correct. Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So that upper level where it says roof deck, where the grade is extreme and where the grade exceeds that 4 feet out of the ground, my intention was to not, we're not calling that a story because it's not in that area, and there is no. We have a roof deck, but there is no story up there.
Okay.
And so the building is stepped back, and there is another setback also. If we look at the third floor, it is also set back in that area. Essentially, if you're looking at the bottom section, it says fitness in that. We'll call it the basement for now. From there over to the left is where the grade exceeds the definition here, where we're talking about story. So my intent was to set the building back such that we didn't interfere with that. So I think at some point, and then as you're going, if you're on Main Street and you go back on the property further towards Thorn Lane, the grade rises dramatically, more dramatically than it does going down on Main Street. So the grade is rising. So by the time you get 20, 30 feet back into the building, it's no longer sticking out of the ground much anymore. So I guess that's where we're looking to more clearly define, where the fifth, we're stepping the building, so we're avoiding that 5th story. And then as another kind of point, the lower level, which we're calling the basement or down low on Main Street, if that wasn't there, if it was just say pilings or just a crawl space or a slab, we wouldn't have a story there because there'd be no use. So in that case, I'm back to more obviously, it's not a 5th story. So I guess it's a little bit complicated the way the site works and the grading, but that's what we're looking to take advantage of this airspace that's down there, and it seems a good way to put it to use. And then obviously the use situation becomes a different topic. But maybe I'll be quiet for a second if anybody has any questions or input.
Well, I think that maybe Jen can jump in and confirm this, but I think the upper port criteria along Main Street in terms of building design is for 3 stories with a bonus 4th story if the face of the building along Main Street is set back, so it theoretically can't be seen from the sidewalk. So it prevents a tunnel vision.
A canyon effect, right?
Yeah.
And that the developer provide a major public amenity.
Okay, right. That
That's
was
another.
Right, which we are, prepared to discuss and utilize.
Okay.
Right, and you've done that in the past, so we're not,
That's not a surprise.
we're not surprised, that's a good thing, and you made good on it. Yeah, so I guess the whole crux of it is the definition of the 3 stories plus 1, and we have a site that's has a grade change along the frontage of the building along Main Street. So that's going to be the determination of whether or not it meets the code. Jen?
If you look at that section BB, that shows the stepping at that location.
Okay, and BB is sliced along.
It's sliced
at the rear.
Right, where the apartments are in. We're talking about the apartments at the lower level.
Mm-hmm.
So that's sliced through there.
Okay.
So that's the northern end of the structure, looking toward the water.
Correct.
Okay.
So, and then where you can count, that upper floor on the right of that section, the grade of the property is up high, so it's not sticking out of the ground. So the condition, that 5-story quote unquote condition doesn't really exist on that side of the building in relation to the grade, even though you're looking at it, it does step back, and I guess that's what the issue we're looking to.
Well, I think it exists if you're walking south up the street, and I guess to your north you have a vacant lot. So there, the impact of a 5-story building you would definitely see.
Yes, all right. I mean, I guess from a definition of the way the story is defined, I guess is. I mean, obviously, when you see, you're still going to see that from coming up the hill,
Mm-hmm.
but it is set back. But then we're looking at the definition of how it's defined in the code, and it is the grade of the property is kind of the unfortunate part of the property. So we have to be able to find some way to utilize it, properly, and utilize it somehow. Which also gets back to the use issue with the apartments not being allowed on the ground floor along Main Street as part of the zoning description. But I'm wondering, is it really, the zoning says you can't have apartments on Main Street or North Country Road, but could it really be considered on Main Street that there are no doors, the living space is either above or below the actual grade, so it's not really. Well, the floor doesn't follow, level on Main Street.
I might have to disagree with you there. Unit, is that 002? Hold on.
Right, 0102.
Right, the second one in, sort of is at grade. If you're following.
Yes, it does.
002.
It quickly changes, but. And so much quickly that it would be hard to utilize that space for anything. In other words, like I couldn't have a retail or an office space there even if we wanted to, which we didn't, because of the extremeness of the grade.
You would have to access it with you'd have to have an accessible access via elevator from the interior, and it bisects the slope of the street in unit 002. I mean, that's effectively at grade. So it would have to be, a single large retail space, with that being where it bisects slope, that being the
Right.
point of entry, right?
But, you know, I mean, that's certainly not something we would look to do, and I think that would be difficult for most applicants to attempt to put something there. So, I mean, I understand how the zoning is in question, but, you know, it seems to be if you're going to put something there, it would make sense to do what we're showing, and or if you didn't put anything there, again, if it was just technically it was just a wall, I've kind of eliminated any I've eliminated the question of the 5 stories because there's no story there if there's nothing there. Again, the height, because of the way the height is written in, that the height isn't an issue because of the
Correct.
we're able to utilize Thorn Lane through the zoning. So, and we just wanted to be able to present it tonight and talk about the issues and see what the opinions are and how do we work with it.
Okay,
So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Maybe you go back to the first floor plan, which should be above, one of the sheets above.
Yeah, so the first floor plan, again, that apartment down heading towards the harbor, I'll call that essentially what you would consider the second floor. I mean, that's
Correct.
up there in the air, that whole level.
Yep. Yep. It's above the 4 feet. Yep.
So the theoretical basement has 2 units, and then the first floor above has 4 units, I think.
Correct.
Okay, so you got 6 units of the 40 on the lower 2 levels, right? That's what you're showing right now.
Yes.
Okay.
And again, at the back of that, where the unit 104, that the grade is up level essentially there. So
Yeah.
we're not sticking out of the ground. That's a cellar. Underneath that would clearly meet the definition of a cellar. And then along at the corner where we have the retail and office, that meets the definition of a cellar because it's sufficiently below grade.
Mm-hmm. And looking at the first floor plan, the subsequent floors above come over to the dotted line where the sewer district limit is.
Correct.
So they're overhanging that parking that we see on the screen now. And how far up to that line do they go? Is there a 5 foot? I see a 5 foot dimension there. How
Looks like the
far
sidewalk.
does the face of the building come to the sewer district limit, or is it right on it, or is it?
Actually, instead of 5 foot, that's a 0.5 foot. So we have 6
there you go.
inches. I gave you 6 inches.
Yeah.
Okay, so it comes very close. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I mean, the original code was 3 plus a bonus with a setback on the roof, so along Main Street. So, I mean, that's what the baseline of what we're working with. So that's what we're going to have to look at. But is there anything else?
I guess so. I mean, at some point, it's not. I guess at some point it's not. You can't count to 5. For a major portion of the building,
Mm-hmm.
you can't get to 5. So I guess we try to determine, at what point is it going to 5, and that we can't avoid here.
Okay. Yeah, it's well, the grade's complicated, and this is not the first time we've had this with a height on a building, not specifically number of stories, I don't think, but the height being calculated. It got very specific, I think, on the Tritech building in terms of the height requirement and the variance that was needed. Eric, if you want anything else you want to go through, be fine, and then we'll have Jen go through the staff report. Jen, has Eric seen the staff report? Do you know?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yes, and I've reviewed it with the applicants, and we are able to conform with everything in there. It was talk of an additional planting strip along Main Street, and so everything else in the report. The 2 issues are the use of that chunk of the space at the bottom of the hill, and then how to define what's acceptable for this building. Obviously, a lot has changed since we started with the project, with the pandemic, things like that. Cost of materials have skyrocketed. There's a lot going on regarding that, and it's going to be difficult for us to, we had previous designs that were larger than this. We've kind of somewhat scaled it back, but we're really not in a position to go much less as it is, so we need to work for a way to, mold it into something that's acceptable to the village, and still, able to work with the village code. As you know, the way things are written regarding with the height, regarding the curb level on the highest level, and how the story is defined. We have to work a little bit creatively to put things together. So that's those are the only items that we saw in the report that we would discuss. I was rounding up parking spaces to come up with 47 when really it should be 48. So we would hope to offer to pay, a pay for parking scenario for that one space, and all the other items we could address.
Okay, the board is actually reviewing the pay for parking scenario to develop some consistent recommendations for the Board of Trustees. Before Jen you get into the report, maybe if any board members have any questions of
I do, yes.
You.
Should I go ahead?
Go ahead, Barbara. Yep.
Okay. What I'm very concerned about is Thorn Lane and how the curb cut is on Thorn Lane. Thorn Lane is a very long one-lane dead-end street, and once you get past this property, it's all single-family homes. So in the past, there have been residents on Thorn Lane that have complained about ingress and egress to their own street because of the backup on North Country Road when the hospital's let out. So that's why they have that box painted on North Country Road, don't block the box. But I'm wondering, with the only access to this building coming off Thorn Lane, is that going to cause the residents additional problems? Because it's at the mouth of the street, and then you have all these houses where that's their only access. So that's one of my concerns. I was hoping that they would retain one of the curb cuts on North Country Road to perhaps alleviate that. And then I do have a question on the north side of the building, the most northern part. There's a gate onto Main Street, and there's a very steep driveway that, at least when the Morellis had the building, the garage, they used that for deliveries. I was wondering if on this plan that driveway would be removed or not.
Sure. Yes, and we have a traffic study that VHB had worked on. I'm not sure if you had it available to you, but I know it was submitted in paper form. I don't think I had an electric copy, but the VHB had addressed the traffic in the area, and we discussed some of the curb cuts, and obviously when we get further along, we would have them available to testify about the traffic situation. I understand it may be additional requirement with amending a SECRA. So I think we could address those issues on how that other curb cut relates to traffic and the issues. It's a popular corner, as we know. So I think we can better address the pros and cons of that other curb cut. But it is the design of the project is such that if push comes to shove, I mean, the grade, as far as the grade standpoint goes, we could provide that. I would lose a couple parking spots perhaps, or do a redesign, but we could actually essentially provide the same curb cuts that's there with this building layout. And then to answer your other question regarding down low on Main Street, we would close up that curb cut, and I'm pretty confident DOT would require us to do so and to not to be able to utilize that. So we wouldn't intend to use that, no.
Okay, thank you.
So Barbara, is that what you were talking about, that lower level that we've just put up on the screen?
Yes, in fact, I had mentioned to a friend of mine, I go, haven't you ever noticed the gates on Main Street that opens up to a drive that goes from Main Street all the way up to the parking lot? And it's quite well hidden. But yes, I was just wondering what was going to happen to that. And you know that it's been quite some time since I've been back there. So that that bottom picture, I'm not quite sure, but the top picture, yeah, that's it. I noticed that. Well, again, it's been quite some time since I've been back there, so I can't even address if there's any asphalt. But my main concern is because Thorn Lane is a dead-end street and it's only one lane wide and quite a few houses on there. I'd hate to see, you know, they're already residents are already complaining about the inconvenience of coming in and out, and I would hate for this to add to it.
Okay.
And then
I just say something, Barb? Can I say one thing? Barbara, just so you know, speak with the traffic engineer. The amount of units and the small amount of retail that we're proposing is a much less intensive use than the restaurant that was there. So I think the traffic situation is actually going to be a lot better with this type of proposed use at the subject site rather than the larger scale restaurant that was there. So I think it's going to be a better situation than they were used to over so many years.
Okay, I was just thinking, Rob, that, you know, let's say you have 3 cars coming out of that parking lot and they all are being forced to take a right because the street's a dead-end street. And then you have residents coming down the street and they want to get out also. So that's what I was thinking. Also, would it be, I know this would cause you to go to the zoning board for a variance, but would this building be better as an apartment complex rather than having the retail, you know, sort of like how the Hills of Port Jefferson is, it's all apartments.
That would be a use variance.
A use variance, okay. Because if you cross that street on foot, you know, either Main Street or North Country Road, I don't know, well, you have the parking lot, so I'm not sure how, well, I beg your pardon, I'm thinking if it's an office space and you have that large parking lot, it's not a problem. But if it's a retail space, it may not be the most desirable location.
We agree. We don't love retail in this climate anywhere right now, to be honest with you. But, you know, I believe the master plan calls for, you know, retail on the ground floor. So we were just following, you know, the recommendations of the master plan. We weren't looking to have to obtain any variances and follow what the village's vision was for this location. But yeah, to be honest, we would prefer not to have retail there. We own enough shopping centers and retail locations, and we've obviously been impacted with what's going on. But even before the pandemic, retail has obviously changed quite a bit over the past decade. And you know, it's not an easy corner for retail. I know there's a restaurant. He was successful for so many years, but he was a special user, and I think he's going to do very well where he is. But besides that, yeah, we would prefer that, but I don't think that fits within the vision of the master plan. You know, correct me if I'm wrong, though.
No, you're right. You're right. But sometimes, well, I'm not going to say anything. So I'll keep my mouth shut. But anyway, thank you. I just hope that you take into consideration the residents on Thorn Lane. But thank you for your time.
Laura, was that you that had a question?
Yes, it was. Lisa, do you think you could put the other file back up, the first floor?
Okay, one second.
So my question was several different questions, but how do you get into the retail space? Where's the door?
The door is right there. It says right to the. There's a circle that says C. If you're looking at it, says retail
Okay.
office, and then yeah.
And then
Says
how? So the handicap parking that's along North Country Road is awfully far from any of the entrances, but you did mention that the sidewalk on North Country Road would be okay as a handicap
Yes,
accessible ramp, but how would you, if you park in those handicap, how do you access the, is it right through that slotted? Oh,
correct. Right. So I was providing I'm showing it as patio paver type paving coming directly. If you park at that handicap space, you would wheel forward towards North Country Road to pick up the sidewalk, and then the accessible route would head down to that space.
Okay.
And so the trade-off is we really wanted to have that commercial space on the corner. It's obviously very attractive corner to be at in the village. So that really made sense to put that space there. And the inconveniences you have, it's a little bit, you get some more steps in your exercise day by getting down there. But, that's the trade-off, is to have that corner. Otherwise, something kind of has to go there. So.
Yeah. And then if you go to the floors above, Lisa, not the basement. I think well, actually you can stop here. Like where are the doors going to be located? Am I just not understanding the plans?
Doors. Each door in the building. Like the doors to the units in the.
Yeah, the doors to units. So like unit 001, is there enough room between the stairway and its wall with 002? Just looks small. And then.
Yeah. Yes. The doors are obviously inside in the hallway. They're not shown really on the plan, as it was, deemed to be somewhat
schematic.
considered as a schematic kind of design without detailing all the stuff. But yes.
Okay. And
all
then,
the doors would be inside the building.
And they fit, obviously.
Yeah.
Because when you go to I think, Lisa, if you could go up a little bit to the higher stories. Let's see. Yeah, the third floor. I'm not understanding how unit, can't really see, 304 works.
304, the door would come right off near where it says stairway 2. The door would come through there at the living room.
Okay.
So the hallways are 6 feet wide.
Okay. Funky thing. Okay. So back to the handicap, it's not too far away.
No, it's also there is the handicap essentially for the apartment is up underneath the building, and that's obviously more direct right into the building. So there are 4 handicap spaces provided, and the code is just that it's as close as practical to the entrance. There's no set requirement how far it can be.
Okay.
As long as it meets the slope requirements.
Okay. And then,
I'm sorry.
so the retail space, in Jen's, I know retail, we've had this discussion before about retail, but I think I have a different perspective. I think you actually need something to draw people to an area. Our downtown has some great shops, and I think people come from all over to go to the shops. Anyway, we're you're taking something that had, Jen, you had the numbers. It was the amount of retail is dramatically shrinking on this
Yeah, it's
property.
a different. It's about 7,000 square feet, I think was her number. So you had the florist, that was the
Yeah.
house on the corner, and the restaurant. But you know, in our case, I mean, we do have the space on the corner. It's not a very big space, but it can serve the area that has a lot of vacant retail, certainly, and
Yeah.
the way things have changed in market-wise, frankly, the market is non-existent for retail, and as everybody wants to talk, and I understand the concept of a walkable community and wanting to have these spaces that you can go and walk to, but at this point up there, it's a bit saturated, and we're not able to fill those spaces reliably and have a valuable project at this point. And that's just the way that things are changing for a lot of people, or for most places in the country now with the retail situation. So that's our standpoint.
And then the other thing I had to say was, I don't know if I'm the lone person on this, but I actually like the way that you've utilized the space with whatever you want to call it, 4 stories with a basement.
Yes, I think it leads
I actually
to a
like how
compact
you've
design.
used the slope. I just wish there was a little more retail. That was my only. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah, and it is. Again, the zoning talks about a basement and says a basement would be considered a half story. I don't know if that's another topic to consider, but another way that the code is written, that maybe we talk about how to work with it. So another designs that we looked at, which involved going into the sewer agency or extending the sewer district, which we wanted to avoid, but that would extend the building all the way up the street, essentially. So, it would be more of a block-to-block situation if we had to avoid the hole, I'll call it the hole in the project, which is the going down Main Street. So if I had to cut off that end of the building, I have to bring it much further up towards Thorn Lane. So this just seemed like a more compact structure to put together. Also, to address Thorn Lane, there is right now the edge of pavement goes from 12.5 to 15 feet from the property line. So there is some additional. I'm showing the curb where the edge of the pavement is now, because that's what exists. But there is room to make the street wider, perhaps adding a turning lane or some other reconfiguration or striping that helps the situation there.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
Any other board members have questions?
I do. Is there access to the retail from inside the building? So I see you have that door coming in with a lounge.
Yeah, we're not intending to provide it. It's not preferred, but it is a possibility. The size of the space from a building code standpoint doesn't actually require a second exit, but it is there. There's a slight floor elevation difference of a foot, but that something that could be addressed. But we'd have to bring people through the building, which I'm sure I don't think the applicant would want to do.
All right. Anyone else on the board?
Yeah, I have a comment about really the parking. I think there's a lot of building for the site. 47 parking stalls. If you have retail and if it's 300 feet to a car, that's like 4.5, 5 cars for the retail. That basically allows you 1 car for every apartment. I don't know if they're 1 bedroom or 2 bedrooms, but I know if it's a couple,
So
they're probably
we
gonna
are calculating the retail. I'm calling it retail or office. I use the 1 space per 300, which is allowable for the code. So I said 4.5 spaces, but the reality of that is 5, as Jen had pointed out. And then we have 35 one-bedroom and 5 two-bedrooms. The 5 two-bedrooms have 1.5 spaces, and then the one-bedrooms have 1 space per unit as per the upper port code. Obviously, the philosophy being more of a walkable community. You have the transit, you have the railroad station nearby. We anticipate a lot of people from the hospital or hospitals to be involved or tenants with the project. So we always prefer more parking, but this would be acceptable to the applicant and is zoning compliant. The floor area ratio we're proposing is just under 1.5, and we're allowed a 2.5 floor area ratio. So it is somewhat compact. I have a 35% lot coverage, so less than half of the property is occupied by a building.
So my thought really still is like, there's too many apartments for the site, because personally, I don't think the parking is going to work, even if you're meeting code. Because you're not allowing like for 2 cars for families, or 40 people. If they get company, they're going to come down this little road here, and they can't get into the parking lot because it's full. Where are they going to park? I just think it's a little.
The applicant
tense.
has experience, and they wouldn't end up with a lot of. I guess we could let them address it, but we're trying to be code compliant and work with the density that we're proposing is within the guidelines that was part of the comprehensive plan. So as a part of these transit, we'll call it a transit-oriented development. These are some of the techniques or things that we're using that we're more comfortable with, because we're anticipating more people walking. Obviously, on Long Island, parking is always a problem, and in the village, it's always a problem. So we recognize that, but we're trying to make the project viable, and we feel it's acceptable. I have the applicant has quite a bit of experience with this type of building, and so is able to judge what they feel they're comfortable with to make the tenants happy.
Eric, I'll be happy to speak on this. Yeah, we obviously have experience in the village with residential and commercial parking. Just the hills up the road. We don't have any issues with parking. We have a shared parking lot with the village that our tenants never even utilize. What happens with this type of building, we have the Barnum House also downtown Port Jeff. We have commercial spaces and residential spaces. The commercial tenants are obviously there during the day. At nighttime, when the majority of our residential tenants do come home, it's just sort of a shared parking area. So we've never run into any type of issue. And we have other properties obviously across the metro area. But put all that aside, we will not build a property if we don't think the parking's sufficient. We've walked away from many projects, even though it might be code compliant, because we felt the parking was not sufficient. So our experience here in Port Jefferson Village alone, we're confident the parking will work. Otherwise, honestly, we would not take on the project. As Eric mentioned, the hills, which we have just up the road from this project, it's 74 apartments. I know we have 4 tenants alone right now that don't even have cars. They work at Stony Brook University. They take Uber, they take Lyft, or they take the train for the use. There's obviously no guarantee in that, but there, we met the parking requirement, and we've never had issues. And like I said, the same thing with weekends. There's always people coming and going, and there's never been any type of parking issue that we've run into. And we're confident that what we're proposing here would fulfill the needs of the potential tenants as well as the commercial uses.
Could I just ask a quick question, Rob, about that?
Sure.
No, it's encouraging your statement about some of the people in the hills that don't. I think, though, that the parking calculation for Rail Realty was under the old code. I think the parking changed rather recently for Uptown and
Yes,
allowed it relaxed some of the requirements. So I think Tom does bring up a good point.
So let's move downtown to the Barnum House, where we have 30 apartments. We have CVS, have a hair salon, nail salon, and a publisher's office. So there we have 40 spaces, I should say, that are dedicated for our residential tenants. Do our commercial tenants use those spaces as well? Absolutely. So there we have 40 spaces, 30 units, but the ratio of one and two bedrooms is quite different. I believe I have 10 2-bedrooms there and 21 bedrooms. So it's a little different ratio. So you have more cars you're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
My tenants, the 30 tenants, residential tenants, stay within those 40 spaces. They're never parking in a large parking lot across from CVS. So right there alone, and this has worked for over 20 years now, is a proven entity that, that ratio does work with what we have in terms of, we're going heavy on 1-bedrooms for this, proposed project. So seeing that as an example, using that as an example, over 20 years of experience really tells us what we're running into in terms of parking requirements and the needs, I should say.
Okay. That's a good point.
Yeah, they are good points. Yeah, but
And
they're
that's-
only if on the outside chance, just to play devil's advocate, if parking did become an issue, if the retail for whatever reasons, Thorn Lane, which is, as Barbara pointed out, quite narrow and a quiet residential street, that is really your only parking option there if your lot is full, correct?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Back to Barnum, I encourage you to drive past Barnum House.
Oh, I'm not
at 7
questioning
o'clock at night, and you'll see no cars in that large lot.
Right.
And here with this retail, we're not looking to put a restaurant here. We're looking for more of a daytime use, so which coincides with what we're talking about. With this user, whether it's a professional office or dry use retailer, they're not going to be there. It's not going to be a late night type of user like a restaurant or a bar that's going to be there overnight with lots of customers coming in. That's not our plan for this location. We're not looking to make it a wet use.
There's some additional on-street parking on the south side of North Country Road.
Sure.
There are some spots there also.
Right. There's a few parallel parking spots, but that's not a fun road to cross most of the time.
True.
Yeah, that's true though.
So was the basement area incorporated into the parking calculations?
The basement area currently shows the 2 apartments. So obviously those are included. And the other space is the fitness room, which has no assignment. It's part of the common area for the building. And the other spot in the basement is utility and storage areas.
That's all the questions I have. The drawings are really nice. They're really clear. It was easy to read. I liked all your sections and stuff.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other board members have questions?
Yeah, if I could. I'm a little concerned with the north face of the building. Sorry, when you're coming up 112, heading south on 112. If you could scroll the map down just a bit, I'm curious as to what happens in the north, the other way. I'm sorry, back on that same site plan, right? Yeah, right there. Yeah, up in that northwest corner, is that adjacent property? Or is that part of the overall property that's, being considered? And if so, what's happening in there? I know it's that road that Barbara was speaking about earlier, I think. And
yes, so there's a jog in the property. I think it's the 15-foot jog.
Okay, that's the actual end of your property.
Right. So we don't control that portion. That's I believe Hope House or a corporation related to that.
Okay.
That's owned by the Wayback. They had come to you guys for
Yes, I'm sorry, excuse me.
a number of years ago. In my most recent conversations with the owner of the Wayback, they have no intentions on moving forward with their original proposal in that area and really just plan on maintaining the property as is moving forward.
I would be very interested in seeing some type of sketch or elevation of that north face and what it would look like coming off of heading south on 25A. Because I think that's going to be an awful lot of building.
That's where you experience 5 stories.
Yes, that's where you experience that. Yes.
Yeah.
And so there is some stepping of it, but yes, it's not. It is there. So you're right. Obviously, we'd have to present that, and I think it. Obviously, deserves a 3D kind of view of the situation to help everybody understand it better. But it is there. Yes.
Right.
So again, it's utilizing the airspace as opposed to having to put that volume of building somewhere else. So I think that's kind of the trade-off.
Yeah, it's disconcerting. Something I guess we got to look at a little more.
Anyone else on the board? All right, Jen, if you could go through the staff report.
I can, and I also
we haven't talked about anyway.
I just wanted to, if you would, Eric, go over with the board. I think you briefly explained it to me. We in a pre-submission conference, we did see a way.
We lost your mic, I think, Jen.
So,
back on.
Are
you good?
Hello? You can hear me? Okay.
Yes.
So I don't know where you lost me, but in a previous pre-submission conference that this department saw, there was a restaurant use proposed on the ground level, and there was a much larger retail, a commercial presence. Where was I going with this? Yes. So, which we felt might be a positive and exciting use on that corner. Eric, you explained to me the difficulty in installing a grease trap at that location. And I was wondering if you would sort of explain that to the board as well.
And obviously, if you're talking retail and a food use, that is one of the things that, at least until the pandemic hit with the indoor dining, but that kind of takeout thing obviously is still viable. But it's an issue in these kind of buildings for a number of reasons, having to do with smells and other things. But the real issue with this piece of property is the grease trap, as required by Suffolk County, has to go in the ground outside. And they're 8-foot diameter, and I need from 5 to 10 feet from the building, and generally 10 feet from a property line, although that could be discussed further. So it's a tremendous. One issue is the sewer line only goes on Main Street. The sewer line runs down Main Street. There's no sewer service on North Country. So even if I could put right now the connection to the restaurant is down in this low part. It's down towards the north end of the property at the low part of Main Street. Even if we were able to locate a grease trap there, et cetera, there would be no way to service it. I can't get a truck to pull off the side of the road to pump the thing out. And again, the grade gets in the way as everything has to kind of roll downhill. So to get it from that corner back, there's no way to really get it from here to there and practically put it in a grease trap. It's also become quite expensive and it's quite involved. So that's why we don't feel that we can propose a grease trap at this location. It was a stretch down at 440 Main Street. It was very, very difficult to achieve with all the required setbacks, et cetera. So that's that's where we're at with this
And
one.
we honestly wish that's something that we could achieve here.
Wait.
You know, the only tenants throughout this pandemic that we didn't have to assist financially in terms of our retail tenants were our food service tenants. Most of them who are, you know, primarily takeout based restaurants were able to flourish with what's going on in the pandemic and everything in this world. But all that being said, you know, that's also on top, you know, medical and food service tenants typically pay the most rent. And it's the easiest to find a tenant if you have a wet space available to them. So we wish we could do that here. There are obviously a lot of challenges here having this as a dry retail space in order to locating a tenant that would be able to take on this space. So we wish we could, but it's not financially feasible. I wish it was Nassau County where it was an interior grease trap. It's a much easier situation than what Suffolk County requires. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, but I think a lot of those difficulties are predicated on putting the wet space on the corner of North Country and Main. If you were to, and I think it would help you with what you're calling the hole or the airspace, if you flipped everything, put a fantastic apartment or whatever on the south part, on the corner, the south corner, you could have a grease trap in the parking area that could be pumped out, you know, via someone coming in off Thorn, and use, you know, a deck, a patio looking sort of north, and center a wet location with perhaps nothing above it in that corner, and then build up and wrap the corner around with apartments. Just saying. I just like the idea of a restaurant.
Well, yeah, and so my thought, I'm sorry to interrupt. My thought was, well, maybe I could pipe from the retail back to the parking lot and then pipe it down back again to the front on Main Street. But I need these I need clean out or manhole sampling manholes for each floor, and then the retail space needs its own. And then I need setbacks from the property line and from the building, and I run out of space to accommodate the sewerage, pieces.
Or ask for an easement on your adjacent property if they're going to keep it vacant. Sorry, just throwing stuff at the wall
Right,
to see if it sticks.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. I didn't think about the northwest corner being a restaurant, but I think that's a great idea, especially with the view it would have.
Yeah.
And then you have that area near the dumpster or garbage enclosure, whatever we're calling it. And, you know, even the area where, you know, the outdoor seating is, not that anybody wants to, wants a grease trap near it, but, you know, if it's maintained, it shouldn't be that bad.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it would, then that space would be way up in the air and be no real practical way for independent customers to get there, essentially, other than going through the building.
Yeah.
I don't know if you meant.
Well, I'm thinking the two apartments that are on the north face there as a quote unquote restaurant. You know, I don't even know if that's enough space for a kitchen and everything else you'd need. But you know, you'd have to park obviously on site, walk through, you know, you'd have to configure it somehow. I'm just thinking it might be more viable than trying to find retail space, which, you know, you guys were saying is tough to keep.
Yeah, other than it's a relatively small space and they have enough contacts and experience that they're able to drum up, people to take the space. But certainly if you look around in that area, it's a challenge.
Yeah, no, valid question. And would you be opposed to, I know you'd have to get a variance, you said, rather than have, if it's even possible, rather than having an additional story up top, putting apartments where the retail
and the lounge, I guess, the lounge is.
Well, we would we might be open to that, but I guess one of the issues is the way the zoning is written. It talks about no apartments on Main Street or North Country Road, and then it says if it is allowed, it's a conditional use, and then there are a list of criteria we would need to make to do that. But it's not clear, the way it's written, it sounds like no apartments on Main Street or North Country Road, period. And
You're
then the
not permitted,
conditions would-
right, to have a freestanding apartment building on Main Street or East Main Street.
Which could get a variance.
And you have to have a minimum lot size of 40,000 square feet.
And as a current experience with the Brookport down where Cappy's was, we have the 1,500 square feet of wet space we have available to us there. And obviously we're trying to work with a number of different potential tenants, and we're confident we'll find someone, but the rental numbers they're not where we had hoped on that portion of the property. You could call it the climate we're in, but it's, yes, better rent than a dry retailer, but still the expenses that we'd have to take on to make this wet, what we're talking about, you wouldn't make money for 10 years in the amount that we have to outlay to make it
Okay.
work. So,
And Bill, to speak to your variance point, that use variance, one of the criteria would be that the applicant would have to prove that every other permitted use in the zone
we won't get it.
would not permit them a reasonable return. Pretty sure that as designed, they're going to make a reasonable return without it being a solely apartment complex. It's an impossible criteria to meet, and that's kind of why the state made that part of the use variance criteria. Use variances are only to be used for very, very special and unique properties. I would not see this one being terribly successful.
Okay, fair enough. Thanks.
Anyone else have questions before Jen continues with the staff report?
A point of information, these lots are not going to be joined together.
Merged? Yeah, they will be.
They will be merged. And so that does not make the whole lot part of the sewer district. That's still, okay.
I spoke at the sewer agency with Boris Ratvitz. I'm not sure.
Rukovitz.
Rukovitz. And he seemed pretty knowledgeable on it. And explained it, and he explained that you would have to petition the county to allow you in to the system, and the major stumbling block would be that the village has to sponsor it or agree to it. And it's 30 gallons per day. $30 per gallon per day as a one-time fee. So it'd be like $125,000 fee. But he was pretty clear that that would be the requirement. Also, there was a prior application on this property a number of years ago that they designed it to be on the upper side of the property, and then after the whole site plan was essentially been through extensive planning, the county came back and said, that's nice, but you can't be in the district. At the time, there was no space available in the sewer treatment plant to accept anymore. So the project the project didn't move forward because they weren't allowed to join. In this case, obviously, they've upgraded the sewer system. We know that there's capacity. He did mention that they would have to make sure that there was enough capacity for the rest of the district before they made the district bigger. So although, it may not change the numbers, it may probably be still acceptable, there's still quite a few hoops to jump through, and it's at the discretion of the county.
Sure. Okay. Thank you for that clarification. I just didn't know if it was sort of a, obviously you've done your research there. I didn't know if it, we're just being hemmed in by keeping it all on Main Street, and didn't know if there was like a swap, saying that, well, if that same amount of building could be somewhere else within that adjoined property, then wasn't going to be developed further. It's the same amount of sewage, just somewhere else on that adjoined property, but I'm sure you've been down that road.
Right. Also, moving the building to the other part of the property kind of puts it more in the face of the residential end of it, too. So we're reluctant to go up the street that further. One of the issues with the I guess if I call it the Conifer property or that project, part of the property is in the district and part of it's out, but apparently it's the same tax map. So once you have the same tax map number, even if the district stops halfway through the property, it's still not you don't need their permission, apparently.
Thank you.
Okay. Jen, you want to continue?
Sure. I'll second what Tom said. I mean, the drawings that come in are always very clear, and code sections are referenced. I think Gil brought up a very good point about I've got a northwest corner, and that's my concern as well, particularly with the vacant lot to the north. That's quite a tall piece of building that one would experience, and I think presenting photo simulation or at least some sort of massing sketch from a driver and a pedestrian's point of view walking south up Main Street might be instructive. A fifth story and, well, the two non-complying aspects of the project, the fifth story and the ground level apartments on the lowest level would likely require variances, area variances. I could also see sort of sacrificing, what is it, unit 304 might, is it 304 or 404? Sorry. 403. Anyway, I think examining that corner, if that was the route you were going to take, I think examining that corner would be very useful for everyone.
Yes, I mean, if it really needs a 3D, dimensional presentation so everybody can understand what's happening there.
That or a super quick massing model. It's not a very complicated footprint, particularly. I sort of think that you mentioned, and if the plans as is don't offer an obvious way to separate the residential component from the retail office from the parking lot at the rear, but a rear access to a retail space for handicap, more convenient handicap accessibility, even just, able-bodied people and deliveries, I think would make that space more appealing. And I know that I don't know, how set in stone the level changes are, or if that's a level change you just took to separate them. But that might be worth looking at a little more closely. I'm glad that you have the space to provide lots of sort of landscaping and buffering. The two streets that front this property, Main and North Country, are extremely busy and not pleasant streets to walk along as a pedestrian. So shoving, I think I wrote about it in the staff report, that by having a double loaded sidewalk in effect, so having buffering on both sides with landscaping, street lamps, whatever, street furnishings, that would go a long way toward pedestrian comfort on both frontages. And North Country actually does have sort of a scraggly planting strip along it. I think the sidewalk is too narrow, but it is relatively flat, as you pointed out, Eric. So I think that could be immensely improved. What were some of the what I haven't sent everyone? It was provided early on with the application, was a preliminary traffic study by VHB. I need an electronic copy to send it out, Ray. So I'll get that out to everyone as soon as I've talked to the person. I called VHB to try and find out who generated the report, but haven't heard back.
We'll reach out to Pat Lenahan.
Oh, okay. Is that the person? I just couldn't tell from the report who did it. Great. Trying to. So in terms of, the traffic report is probably a necessary component for the seeker review. While most of the potential environmental impacts of a project like this have been taken into account in the comprehensive plan with the general EIS, the traffic study that was done for the comp plan did not, even though these 3 lots are in the C2, for some reason didn't take them into account. And I think today I had forgotten to send it when I sent the staff report, but the area that they studied basically ended at North Country Road. So a supplementary traffic study to assess, that additional impact that wasn't considered in the EIS would be part of the secret review. But I think, as Rob rightly pointed out, as presented, it's a fairly low intensity use regarding traffic trips generated, and Ray, I know, can speak to that.
Yeah, just off the cuff, I mean, 40 apartments probably generate in the peak hour 20 trips, maybe a little less than that, and that's total going in and out of the site. So in the peak hour of traffic, less than 20 trips in a driveway going into and out of the site. For the apartments, the retail office would be higher.
Can I just say one thing? We were contacted by VHB, I think on Monday or Friday, by Pat. And they actually they're doing the traffic study for Mather. Northwell had hired them. And obviously it's going to tie together with everything we're proposing here. There was some sort of error that they made, and they need to update the report that was provided. So you will be getting a new report from VHB that I guess encompasses whatever they're looking at for Mather. At the end of the day, they said it does not have any impact on the results that they produce for our particular project. But I guess what they're looking at for Mather, something has to be tweaked. So you will be getting a new report regardless, and we'll ask him, meaning Pat, to send you a electronic copy as well.
Oh,
so you'll have that shortly.
Thank you. You see, I think we've covered sort of most of the things that I had outlined in the traffic report, staff report. I think no SWIP will be required. What I would like to ask the board to consider, because there is such a steep level change, that sort of erosion when, you know, erosion control measures on the, particularly on the northeast, that very steep northeast corner will probably be very important. There's a big, so
Yes,
perhaps
we'll
more than
expand upon
one
that.
little silt fence.
We'll
But
expand upon that.
yeah, good. I don't, if people have had a chance, I like the generous number of balconies. I think, you know, as for an apartment tenant, I think it would be quite an exciting place to live. I did notice walking up and down Thorn Lane that there are views, even just walking, of the harbor. So I suspect that from the upper levels of this, you'd have a nice view of the harbor as well. Indoor and outdoor spaces, amenities are provided, and the landscaping is nicely thought out, and screening where required is there, as well as landscaping, which is very nice. I think that particular area is devoid of almost any greenery. So I don't think I have any, there are the usual requirements as this project progresses. I think the applicant will have to, assess whether they decide to seek relief for the non-complying aspects of the
Well, and
project.
we would hope to get a little closer as to that, this upper level is more in compliance based on, the grade and demonstrating how the zoning is written and
I don't think grade really influences what the number of stories you have. I mean, it certainly influences how a building is laid out and planned. But I think as presented, this is a 5-story building.
Where the story is defined as where the grade is 4 feet or more above the ceiling above. So, again, where that doesn't happen, where we're less than 4 feet, then that part of the building doesn't have
right,
that
but you can't just sort of exclude the parts of the building where it is a 5-story building.
So
it's one contiguous, it's one structure is all I'm saying. And you've got, go ahead, sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Yeah, right. The majority of the building is the 4-story, and the only place, again, where you can kind of get the 5 is when you come around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
So, does that mean that I can't have, because of the grade is so extreme, I can't utilize the way the zoning is written to achieve that upper story?
Yeah, that confers a 5th story.
Yeah,
so if I take out that basement and there is no basement, and I have just space, that eliminates then there is no story because there's nothing there to be a story. And then I wouldn't technically, from a zoning standpoint, need to provide the other setback up above. So it's just
there's that aspect, but you also have to, so what kind of, is that still a good building? It will,
right. No,
the massing will still inform, it will be a 5th story, will look like a 5th-story building. It will look like a building that doesn't have any windows on the 1st floor.
Correct, right. No, we wouldn't want to do that. So that's why we're, hoping to be able to utilize that space. The other thing is putting, kind of retaining walls and building up the grade and raising it to achieve the compliance. But those are just what we wanted to talk through as to what we're dealing with. Otherwise I can't have, what we're saying is I can't have any upper bonus story because of the grade in the one corner of the property.
Unless you get relief through a variance.
Yeah, that was my interpretation too, that the grade around on the street grade on the frontages of the building influences the height calculation in terms of feet from, feet of height. whether or not you might need a variance in height in terms of footage, but not number of stories. I mean,
well, and you know, I enjoy working with the village code and the way it's, you know, and you know, studying it for the number of years now. The way the height there's in this section of the code I'm regarding the option for the height is that we use the average grade of the highest curb level that surrounds the property. So really, from a legal technical standpoint, that number is derived from Thorn Lane,
Right.
which obviously skews things. But
well, that works very much in your favor, but the grade change and the prohibition on going any higher than 4 stories without relief affects you at the other end of your property.
Right, a relatively small portion of it.
Which
yes,
could be, you know, absolutely part of your argument, but I think, but it's also the most visible part of your property. Southbound.
So I guess the one issue, even with the bonus story, is, you know, the code is written to provide a public amenity. And so where does that go? It's not defined. Is that, you know, we provide you with the tree, or do I need to,
that was one of the next things I wanted to bring up with the planning board, that we would discuss possible, you know, major public amenities, what those would look like, what could they be. I'm happy to offer one of the things that came to mind if you want to hear it. I think perhaps extending the sidewalk north to Stony Hill as, you know, one option, with you know, the 12-foot width and the plantings and a new code compliant wider sidewalk.
Unfortunately, the comp plan, though, putting forth using a major public amenity as a way to get a bonus floor, doesn't give us a Chinese food menu where we can just ideas from. So certainly there'll be more discussions about what that major public amenity will be. I mean, in the past, we've looked at like with the Conifer project, their major public amenity, when originally they were going for the 4th floor, was deeding Station Street to the village. They still needed to do that as well, in part because that's how they access the building. But now without the 4th story, we're still getting that streetscape. So it's certainly something that we can have additional conversations about. I know you guys as a team are always incredibly creative. If you have any ideas of something that you feel would make that area better, certainly speak up. We'd be happy to work with you on any of them.
Okay.
So that tree is a good thing. So obviously it's a tremendous, you know, it could be $1 million or it could be $100. So that's.
I'm thinking 100's not quite right, and I'm thinking $1 million's a bit high. But again,
right, that's why I went that way.
Exceptional tree.
Somewhere between the two. Jen, you have anything else on the report?
Let's see. I don't think so. Just
parkland fee. I'm sorry.
Right, there are a number. The parkland fee, pile-up fee for the one space that is missing if the plan stays as is. That's sort of about it. Another idea, and this came up in the pre-sub for a possible public amenity. There's a sort of derelict parking area that belongs to another property on the across from Mather on the southeast corner of the intersection of Belterre Road and North Country, that they don't seem to use any longer. It was never fully improved as it should have been. And given the dearth of commercial parking uptown, we may not have a restaurant here, but you know, who knows what will happen in other areas of C2, and finding parking for you know, retail and restaurant use uptown, even and particularly for something like a restaurant, which you know tends to have afternoon and evening hours more often. There may be an opportunity to work with that property owner there. I have just sort of spitballing at this point, but it does seem like an opportunity for perhaps looking at additional parking.
Right, that lot was as part. It used to be the Key Bank building, or
Right.
the McNamara days.
It's
That
been for
was
sale for a
deeded
while.
to use that.
Excuse
So
me?
that
It's currently for sale. The
Oh.
building on the corner that goes with that parking lot's currently for sale.
Right. Are both parcels for sale?
Well, I assume you need to have that parking. I thought one goes with the other. I thought
They do, but that doesn't mean.
I would assume that you need to have that parking in order to keep that building, but I don't know what the deed or the code says. But.
Or maybe to keep the site plan approval you currently have, yes. Yeah, but what happens in reality when is not always exactly. Okay.
Just a point of information, uptown parking is something that the trustees and you know, hopefully with the planning board and Kevin Wood with the parking agency here is going to be discussing in the coming months. So we'd love to sort of keep spitballing on the uptown parking ideas there.
Right, because unlike this project, other sort of preliminary sort of projects we've seen, or you know, the Conifer project, currently, most of them do not supply any retail. They opt for the payment in lieu of parking instead of providing it. That's all I got.
Okay. Anyone else before we adjourn? Oh, I want to say that was an interesting walkthrough, Eric and Rob, and you've given us a lot to think about here. I would like to say that we should have all board members review what we've got to date and plan on discussing this at the next board meeting. Just to keep things moving along. Anybody have any comment on that, or?
Do you think by the next board meeting we could have a rendering of some sort?
Sure. What is that date?
February 11th.
Okay. Oh, you're giving me a lot of time. Okay.
Because
Well, don't turn it in on the 10th, though, bro.
That's it. That's when I'll wait to do it that night.
Yeah.
because again, you know, I may be the only one here, but with the grade that you have, I would hate to lose that, what you're calling basement area now. It would look a little strange without that. But yet okay, so if you keep that basement area, you'll have 4 stories, whether you use the bonus or not. So with this unique property, I think you've done, you know, a really great job. And I think having a rendering would, hopefully the rendering would kind of alleviate the mass and the questions that people might have. And you could, you know, hopefully get relief for what you're proposing, because it is such a unique piece of property. If that made sense.
Okay, yes.
And we realize it's an important, you know, entry point into the village. You know, it's a very important corner that so many people pass, so many visitors pass and residents pass. So, you know, like all the projects, we take a lot of pride in the architecture and the aesthetics, the landscaping, adding the Dickens lighting. So, you know, we are going to take a lot of pride in what we put in this corner, because we do feel it's a major statement and a major gateway into the village.
Is it still going to be called the Lobster Houses?
Definitely not.
I tried.
We did work with James to try to come up with creative ways to maybe put him back here as a tenant. And I actually helped assist him downtown where he is today. So that worked out very well. And honestly, I hope he's quite successful down there.
That's wonderful. I was just making a dad joke.
No, it's good. No, we'll stay away from that name for now.
Okay, that being said, I thank you for the introduction and thank you, Jen, for the good report. And we'll continue discussion at the next board meeting. Unless anybody else has any comments or questions, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
Okay, good night, everybody. We'll
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye now.
Thank you.
we'll communicate via email, and I'll see. It's good to see everybody again. We'll see everybody next month.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. Bye.
Bye now.